All right, so I hope everyone was able to find the new registration calendar easily enough. We've changed that at the department. I'm also going to share our agenda, which is kind of all posted in that one area. Looks like someone else is joining. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my agenda here. Okay. So today, May 30th, and our next meeting will be August 29th, same time, 10 o'clock to 11. And then November 28th will be our last quarterly meeting for the year. As I mentioned, pre-recording, we are in line with the other roundtables that meet quarterly for the state. So that's how we'll be doing that for the rest of the year and ongoing. And I will post this to the technical services page on the VT website, and I'll add the recording when we're done. All right, so I think it's probably a good idea if we just go around and say what library we're working at and what ILS we're using, just so that we're on the same page about that. All right, I've had some people join. Yeah, so I'm Lauren Kelly. I'm the technical services consultant here at the Department of Libraries, and we use Verso. And I'm just going to go down the list that I'm seeing. So if Adele would like to introduce themselves, that would be great. Just say where you're located and what ILS you're using.
Okay, hi, I am Adele West Fisher. I'm from the St. John's Ferry Athenaeum, and we're like Vocal Koha.
Thank you. And Janet is next on the list.
Hi, I'm Janet. I'm at Rutland Free Library, and we are part of the Catamount Network, also using Koha.
Awesome, thank you. Sarah?
Hello, I'm Sarah Luttrell, and I'm the cataloger at the Brooks Memorial Library, and we use Koha.
Awesome. We have Veronica.
Morning all, I'm Veronica at the Chelsea Public Library. We use Koha and I am on the Vocal Cataloging Committee.
Awesome. So it looks like today we have two Wendy's. Let's do Wendy without a last name first.
Hi, I'm Wendy McCara from Benton Northrop Memorial Library.
Awesome.
And we use, we're on Koha as well, Vocal. And
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And Wendy Sharkey.
I'm Wendy Sharkey. I'm from Bennington Free Library and we're on Koha.
Awesome. Thanks. Oh, I should have stopped sharing for that. Apologies. All right. Okay, the screens are set up. Thanks everyone for sharing, just going around. Feel free to be on camera or off, really up to you. Please pop in with any comments or questions or things you want to bring up as well. If the chat box isn't showing up, I know that sometimes is an issue in Teams. I'll do my best to read out anything that gets placed there, so feel free to use that as well. But yeah, interrupt me whenever. That's probably easiest, so nothing gets by. Okay, I have filled the agenda with a couple of things that I want to bring up. And as a reminder, I'm always looking for what people are interested in learning for continuing education webinars or classes. I've been thinking about doing a kind of one-off class on classification, just talking about different systems, different problems and kind of current events going on with classification. And as always, you can find previous webinars and pre-recorded webinars on Niche Academy and also on the VT Lib page for continuing education. I put the link there. Back in April, I wanted to make mention of a couple of sessions that I went to at the Vermont Library Conference, some interesting conversations pertaining to classification, with rearranging religion to decolonize Dewey. Elizabeth McKinstry, who is from a Massachusetts library, the Springfield City Library, talked about her process of rearranging Dewey and being more critical about the way that the religion section is set up. All right. And then a really interesting conversation happened with managing special collections at public libraries, which seems to be a very applicable topic to almost every library in Vermont. It seems like there are a lot of special collections, and I know that some people have reached out about getting a little bit of help with. Sorry, I cut out for a minute there. Yeah, but special collections. There are a lot of very local and very old materials that are in Vermont libraries. So there have been some requests for information and continuing education on that topic. Something that I've come across recently, the state library has added a public policy collection, mostly for legislators and state employees, but they're all available for interlibrary loan should anyone in your communities be after these materials that are about public policy on various topics, one of them being climate change, which led me to come across that there's not really a good Dewey number that encapsulates kind of where we are climate change wise. And I wanted to show this blog post. And while this blog post was originally posted in 2015, it had some comments on it from last year, and it seems to be really relevant still. Okay, so this is from Doing the Dewey blog, which I encourage people to check out, even if the posts are a little bit older. There's still a lot of information and various topics. There's a whole plethora of conversations about specific Dewey numbers. And in our case here, this is all about climate change. And it kind of goes through and lists different numbers and different aspects. Ultimately, they landed in environmental changes, which I think works fine, but it's just it's kind of an in-depth look. It's not too long, but it's kind of worth checking out. And I thought that it was really interesting that you know, there have been a lot of conversations about moving away from Dewey, and this kind of illustrates a gap in representation for a topic that's only gotten more and more critical and pertaining to our lives today. So I thought that was very interesting. And for people who have just joined, I'm just kind of going through the agenda with various topics to bring up. Please interject anytime, bring up any questions or comments that you have to hear from you.
Lauren, I wanted to interject and thank you
Yeah,
for that
please.
that Dewey blog, because I always forget about it. It's a great one, but that was really very
Yeah.
interesting. And I had just been sort of wondering where to put a new book that had just come in, a self-published climate change book. And I had
Nice.
just gone through some of that. So that was really lovely and very timely for
Yeah.
me. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, it was really timely for me as well, because yeah, I mean, it's such a, especially when it comes to public policy,
Right.
like so much is being written right now to address climate change. And so it was just, it's just nice that, you know, that blog can be useful today, even though, you know, the original conversation was from 2015, but it's like great resource.
Right. And to
I'm-
see the way the like thought process goes, right? I think that's really useful when you're thinking
Yes.
about classification. So I also want to say, yes, please do a classification course. That would be super funsies.
Awesome. Yeah. We will get that in the works. I know we're probably going to be doing the like cataloging class for the public librarianship certification program. But I'm hoping to do kind of more like we did in February, just kind of like one-off webinars on deep dive on specific topics. So I'm thinking probably sometime this summer would be a good time to do just one classification webinar. So yeah, that would be great. Cool.
Huzzah.
All right, something else that I've noticed recently with some of the newer records that I've been pulling in are the 386 fields with these creator and contributor characteristics. I've never noticed this before. And I wondered if anyone else had been noticing on any new materials that they've been pulling in. Have you been seeing, excuse me, these fields, which kind of just say like attributes of the author or their nationality, their gender, their like place where they've written it. It's really interesting kind of metadata that I hadn't considered before, and I wanted to know if anyone else had been seeing that on records they've been pulling in, or if that's just something that I'm noticing alone. I had never paid attention to that area before because it never really showed up, those later 300s fields.
I also have not seen it. I think I pay attention to my 336, my 337, my 338, and I kind of whoopsie hopsy over the rest, but I'm gonna be paying attention now because it seems fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had never seen that before. It's only been in the last couple of months that I've noticed those fields being there. And I sometimes question like how relevant it is to the actual MARC record. So I don't necessarily know if it's, you know, should I delete it? Should I keep it? Is it extraneous? Would it be helpful? You know, it's interesting with the material that I'm looking at because you know, I don't have a general public community audience for the materials. So it's interesting. Wendy says that I've never noticed before, but yeah, so keep an eye out. It would be interesting to see if that's a thing that is getting incorporated into more records or not. I will share a piece from the cataloging lab. Let's see here. Stop sharing that. And the cataloging lab website is really great with posting kind of like monthly collective news and hot topics. So if you have time, which I know is, you know, always kind of a joke saying, if there's time, check out this. But it is nice for just a one-stop shop of different cataloging news. And something that I think will be helpful for people to see, kind of as a side note, there is a working group that basically, in a nutshell, if I'm understanding this right, was thinking about petitioning for a an editorial board for the Library of Congress subject headings. The subject analysis committee voted to recommend for the creation of an editorial or advisory board that would have input on revisions to the controlled vocabulary, such as subject headings. So that's kind of an interesting and new idea. But if we scroll all the way down, sorry for blurriness, there is an appendix here, and it's listed out and links to all of these different thesauri. So I thought that that was a good resource, and it kind of says, you know, who the authority of that is, how it's getting managed, and any notes, and how the public kind of influences it. So I thought that that was a really nice kind of one-stop shop that I'll probably be working into my courses. But if anyone's interested, the link is on the agenda to look at that. I thought that that was helpful. Okay, and the last big piece of news that I wanted to bring up, because I've already gotten a couple of messages about it. It comes to the OCLC Cat Express merging into OCLC Record Manager. So let me pull up their announcement. We do have a bit of time before this goes into place, but the connection browser will be changing in April of 2024. And at the moment, the state is still going to do our regular program. We'll open up new sign-ons for OCLC accounts and records. You know, the allotment that your library can get from OCLC. We'll still be doing our same process of, you know, any new people will get added. If you already have an account, that won't change. Although, I think on this helpful page that they're, you know, learn about switching to record manager link leads to this page, which is kind of a lot more in depth, has better resources. So if you're worried about learning a new interface, which who wouldn't be, this is a great resource. I've also started using it, so I'm happy to take questions. I'm also happy to demo anything if that's something that we'd want to spend a little bit of time doing. Happy to do that. But if you scroll all the way down on this page, needing help with your WorldShare credentials. At the moment, I'm trying to still figure out how Vermont's situation works with WorldShare accounts. But I'll reach out to our OCLC manager about if specific libraries should be contacting OCLC. I think that's going to be the case, so I wanted to give a heads up about it now, but that's where to go to do that. And that original link and announcement about the change is what is in the agenda, so you can get to that just by clicking on that link there. Like I said, there are some demos here as well, and just more information about it. But I'm happy to show people what it looks like if that's something that we want to spend a little time with today. Like I said, the change doesn't, you know, it's not going to happen until next April, so we have a little less than a year. But I know that it's a really helpful resource that, you know, contributes a lot to our catalogs. So if people are feeling nervous about that changing, understandable. I will say that it took me, you know, I spent a couple of days really diving into what the new interface looks like. I think it's a lot more modern looking. It's a little more sparse, but I think it's a good change. Shall I do, should I log in? Do people want to see a demo?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hold this up. My tabs are switching, correct? Just want to make sure that everyone can see the sign in.
We can see it, or I can see it, but it is
Okay.
funny. It's a slightly different share than normal, but I can see it.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so WorldShare metadata services. I click on this link and I've got my sign in. And when it first pops up, pretty blank, everything's very white and clean, but up here on the left-hand side, there is this metadata tab. And this is basically, if you kind of untoggle the record manager, this is that Connection Cat Express search. So you can search all of WorldCat. You can also search your own library's holdings, but I would not worry about that. For people who have just joined us, I'm just going through the OCLC WorldShare Record Manager, which they will be changing to in April of 2024. So we have a little bit of time to get used to that. But basically, search all of WorldCat like you would before. I typically search by ISBN. I have a book here somewhere next to me that I grabbed. The new book, A Million Views, which I'm sure already has a record, but all right, so these are our results. As you can see, things are different layout, but we've got some different facets that you can narrow by, which I don't know if Connection had as easily in forefront before. These are our results. You can see, you know, it's got some of the MARC data visible already. We'll look at this hardcover version. And if you go to Open Details, it'll just show you, you know, kind of plain text view. If we go back to the search and clicking on the actual title is going to pull up all the bibliographic information, and you can really look at the MARC record. And then the way to export this, going to hit record, send to export lists. So something that's new that kind of worked a little less, really more straightforward with Connection is that you now are making an export list before you're downloading a record. So I made this list earlier today. I just put the date, but we can make a new list. I'm just going to say this is a test and create and add to list. Okay, so this record has been added to this export list test, which you can access it there if you were just pulling in one record. But you could go back to the search for another book, add that to the list. And then to get to those lists, there's a tab down here, Export Lists. Click on that, and right there it'll show you, and you can see, you know, how many records are in it. And click that. This export list is shared across your institution. Okay, that's fine. We can send to my computer, and then it saved it as a notepad file, which has always been the way that I've imported things into Koha. I don't know how other ILS systems necessarily need that record to be imported, but you should have some options. There is a way to set your default exporting. stop presenting for right now. But I'll have to look into that. And then you would just upload that in the way that you normally do. So that's kind of what it looks like. Quick overview. We do have some time before that change takes effect, and we may have to get logins situated. But if you go to that original announcement, it'll have that link there with all those resources and where to figure that stuff out. All right, I think that's everything from the agenda that I had planned on sharing out. Would anyone like to bring up their own conundrums that they've been facing in their cataloging day to day? If not, we can also say, would anyone like to bring up any successes that they've been finding with their cataloging as of late? Or really any topic at all, or any questions. I'm here to answer anything, or you can just think about things, or anyone can chime in with anything that they would like to bring up cataloging wise. I'm going to mute myself so that it's encouragement for someone else to take over talking for a minute.
Well, that backfired.
Yeah, okay. I guess we have a quiet group today, which is fine. I'm happy to let us go early. Also, I appreciate everyone taking this time out of their day to come here and listen to what I have to say. I'm always looking for, agenda items, so please feel free to email me. And we will meet again on August 29th. Yeah, Veronica has a hand up.
Hi, all. I don't know whether this is worth bringing up, but I was just wondering, since I'm in Vocal and it's, part of a huge consortium. And so I'm just wondering maybe how people within the consortium or within their own consortium handle authority records and maybe the cleanup of that, because I know that anyone who imports a record automatically creates a new authority record if it doesn't match perfectly with what's in the system. So there's, an incredible amount of authority records hanging out. So if anyone has tackled that or plans on tackling that, it would be great to just hear about it.
Sorry, Veronica, I missed. What system are you using?
We're on Koha.
Ah, yes, Koha.
Or if it's just like not even worth tackling, which kind of, that's kind of the status quo. So maybe that's just the case.
That's a good question. I have not had too much experience myself with cleaning up authority records. I think it speaks to, once again, the importance of, making sure that any kind of authority name is really by the book, and lines up with, what Library of Congress has, which I know is not a very helpful answer, but I am going to write it down on the agenda so that we have a note that cleaning up authority records is a question. I had thought that Vocal did kind of an auto cleanup every now and then. I could be totally wrong on that though.
I will definitely look into that, but just interacting with Koha as much as I do, it doesn't seem like that happens. I don't know. I'll look into
Right,
it.
yeah. I used Koha in Vocal, and it seemed like there were a couple of things that I was like, I thought this was supposed to be auto cleaning and combining, but you know, things are always, you know, it reminds us once again of like the particularities that cataloging requires.
Well, I think part of it is when we bring new people into Koha, that even if we've just cleaned it up, now we've just brought in, 3 new libraries, and now it's a mess again.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, is it even worth addressing, because it's going to be an ongoing problem, because even if you clean it up, people are going to continue to import it, etc.
Oh, I think it's always a good idea to clean things up, because, if it gets to be too big of a mess, then, then we have chaos. We can't have chaos.
Catalogers do not like chaos.
I was gonna say,
God.
I think that might need to be like the slogan. Catalogers hate chaos.
I'm on it. I'll make some t-shirts up.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Well, technically we love it because it's our bread and butter, but we love it and hate it. It's a combo. But I will say that the idea of record cleanup is perpetually vexing me, because I love to clean up things, but it also feels like a mountain of, yes, it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah, and especially when you get into like older records that just are old, and do we go through all of our ancient old records that maybe don't even have authority records? Yeah, I don't know, but I like the idea of just chipping away at what you can when you see it, and then not pulling your hair out for the rest of it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, my ADD, commends you. I get pulled into that cleanup, and then I'm like, oh, I have other work to do. Oops.
Yes.
And it's also one of those things where we would like authority records to always be permanent, but sometimes they change as well. So I used to think that it's like, oh, perfect. Cataloging is all about rules that always stay the same and never change, but that's not true at all. So I think more and more I'm seeing how, okay, nope, things are constantly up for revision. We do the best with the time that we have in order to clean things up. So yeah, and it also might be more effort to get like collective knowledge, collective education. I think that's what I hope will come out of having this roundtable, getting on the same page, haha, pun not intended, in terms of our best practices. For anyone who kind of just joined us, we went through the agenda. Happy to bring up anything. Please chime in if you have any questions or would like to add anything. We're kind of at a time where it's open to anyone to talk about conundrums they're facing or successes they've had. Yeah. Otherwise, we might be ending a little early today, which is fine. And I always want to make a plug. Please send me any questions that you have, even if it's not for the roundtable, or thoughts or things that you would like to see in terms of continuing ed or any kind of help or resources that we might be able to get you. I feel like we need a little soundboard to play the Jeopardy theme.
Laura, and I'll just say I really appreciate you sending out, first organizing the roundtables, but also sending out that post about the climate change. That was echoing what Sarah said. That was very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I've on more than one occasion, I've gone to the to different posts on doing the Dewey blog. Yeah, it's always nice to get kind of a sounding board because I kind of went through the same process of looking at all the different call numbers that one could use and being like, okay, well, this makes sense in this way, but that makes sense in that way. Who's my audience? You know, all those questions. So it's always nice to see someone else documenting that process. All right, I think that we can adjourn. You guys can get a little over 20 minutes back. I appreciate everyone coming today for this time. Please send any questions you have and agenda items between now and August 29th, because that will be our next quarterly meeting. I will post this recording to our agenda, and that agenda will go onto the technical services page on the website. Does everyone know how to get to that page? That might be helpful to quickly show and go through. And we did get that new CE registration calendar, which has been helpful and kind of making it all in one place to get the link and the agenda. Okay, so on the Department of Libraries website, kind of the easiest way to go about doing this, I think, Service for Vermont Libraries. And the website is kind of under construction, but down here there's a tab for cataloging and technical services, which gets us onto this weird landing page. But if you click Learn About Cataloging, this is the page that I've been really putting effort into. That'll link to the continuing education page, as well as the registration calendar that I mentioned. And then, you know, the dates, and here's where minutes from last week in the agenda with the link is stored here. And then there's also this tutorial that I think is very helpful about downloading a MARC record from Clover for some of those very specific Vermont items. All right, that is truly the last thing. I'm happy to stick around or not, up to you. But thanks for joining, and I'm going to stop the recording.